Alrighty, it's 1:03. It is time. People will probably be coming in a little bit after this, so we'll get started with some intros and stuff like that. But welcome everybody to the Always On Content webinar, hosted by Jesse Severson. Before I give the mic over to him, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is JC Conley. I am a client success manager here at DeanHouston. I've been here for about 2.5 years, almost three. And I manage the day-to-day kind of operations for clients. So making sure that your projects are getting done on time and within budget, and then working with you to make sure that we're helping you meet all your marketing needs. Today I will be acting as the moderator and co-host for Jesse. I will also be kind of monitoring the chat. So if you do have a question, we ask that you throw it in the webinar chat. You can ask at any time, and I will find an appropriate time to interrupt Jesse and ask him on your behalf. We'll also throw some information in the chat, so you may want to have it open just in case, because there will be some like takeaway stuff that you guys can have for yourselves, as well as an email after this that will send everything out to you as well. So, without further ado, Jesse, you have the floor.
Thanks, JC. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us. I really do appreciate it. Talking about always on content, which is this concept of consistently developing thought leadership throughout the year. As JC said, so I'm the content marketing manager at DeanHouston. A little bit about myself. So if you don't know about DeanHouston, so we're a marketing agency that specializes in industrial technical products. How I explained it to my wife is like, you don't know like any of our clients, but they kind of make the world go. So kind of those are kind of our specialties. I've been at DeanHouston. I'm in the Chicago office I've been here about 6 years. So as a content marketing manager, like one foot is in kind of execution, the actual writing, creating stuff. Another foot is in kind of high level strategy, content strategy, kind of seeing the big picture. That's the world that we're going to be kind of staying in throughout this webinar. And I chose this picture, so you go, but also to honor a contract. Burger King is paying me $10,000 to use this. So you got to take it where you can get it. All right, let's talk about the why. Any sort of big conversation, I usually find it's really helpful to understand like the big why. What's the problem we're solving? Why are we talking about this? Why is always on content worthy of our attention and time? So if you think, especially within this world of industrial technical products, how much of your total addressable audience, I'm talking all markets, all job titles, how much of those people are actively looking to buy your product right now? Maybe 10%? Even that could be generous. 10% could mean including like sales, aftermarket parts, services. It could be even less than that. What about these people? It's 90% of your total addressable audience, that product promotion, lead gen, kind of these salesy centric language content pieces. It won't be that effective because they're not looking to buy. Like they don't care about your product right now. So that stuff isn't going to be as effective. So if 90% of your addressable audience isn't looking to buy right now, like what do? You build trust. So I think this sounds and looks really good on a motivational poster, like the hang in there kitty cat. But what does this actually mean? Build trust. What does it look like? How do you do it? So education, if somebody's not looking to buy, education, thought leadership, just stuff that is valuable, that makes them better at their job, makes them more educated. That's the best way to win the attention of that 90% that's not looking to buy. Salesy content isn't going to work. So again, valuable, non-salesy content. And if they start to associate as you're creating content pieces around these core topics relevant to your audience and your industry, as they're kind of engaging with that content, all of these core topics that are critical for their job, they're going to start to associate you as, oh, they're the ones that have the answers. You become the authority on these core topics. And why that's so massively important is, as some of the 90% they're not looking to buy, at some point, those people are going to make their way into that 10%. They have a need. So if you become the authority to the 90%, when it's time for them to actually need something, oh, they're green now. That's because they have background affinity, trust for your product or your brand. Because again, you're not, the first time they're hearing about you isn't when they need something. So if you think about like a traditional sales cycle, and again, this is grossly oversimplification, but for the most part, they're not looking to buy, they're not looking to buy, they're not looking to buy. Oh, shoot, I need an ANSI pump. I need a industrial mixer. I need a serving line for my food service operation. Then they kind of dive into this pit of research. They make calls, they check the internet, they look for a solution to their problem. And after a while, after enough time-consuming research, okay, I think I have a good lay of the land. I'm probably going to request a quote from these people, and then you make a decision. This is especially true as kind of younger decision makers pop up in kind of B2B markets. The idea of, deals are made at steakhouses, at smoke-filled steakhouses, that's becoming less common, and people are kind of, especially digital natives, they're going to be kind of researching online for kind of solutions to their problems. So this is kind of the traditional sales cycle. However, if you kind of build this trust bridge, so what does that mean? It means they're not looking to buy, they're not looking to buy, they're not looking to buy, but they've been engaging in your educational, valuable content. They're starting to associate you as the authority on a topic. So when the time comes, they need something. Oh, I know these are the people that have the answers. I trust them, and they're going to be part of that RFQ conversation. I don't even need to do this deep dive research. I know I have trust in that brand. And why this is so important is, trust is a funny word because everybody wants to earn trust, but by providing actual thought leadership, you're giving them a reason to trust you. It's not just like, hey, you can trust us. You're giving them a reason to trust you by using always on content to create valuable thought leadership, to build that trust bridge, so they know when the time comes they need something, yeah, they're definitely going to be part of the quote process. You build trust by answering your audience's questions and solving their challenges. I'm going to say that again. You build trust by answering your audience's questions and solving their challenges. It really is as simple as that. So why is this especially important in 2025? Beyond just the idea 90% of your audience isn't looking to buy, why is this especially important now? Little thing called AI. So, I mean, this is actively changing how people get information. And I'm going to leave a QR code here. DeanHouston, our SEO, AEO expert, Tori Green, did an outstanding webinar that's all about how AI is disrupting search. If you want to scan the QR code, JC, maybe you can drop a link to the chat. Watch it after this one. Don't watch it now. But there's a lot of good insights to gain from that. One of the big insights is 90% of B2B buyers use AI in the research process. And historically, like B2B is years behind the curve. So if already 90% of B2B buyers are using AI in the research process, that number isn't going to be going down. It's only going to be trickling up. So what happens if you ignore this change? Again, 90% are using AI. This is not, hey, just to let you know, AI will be changing stuff a few years from now. Like it has changed. Like it has actively changed. And now it's a matter of just adapting proactively to that change. So let's take a couple of different routes. Let's say one, all right, the whole AI thing, let's say you just ignore this change and kind of keep doing what you're doing. More than likely, your brand visibility and long-term lead generation sales pipeline is going to go down. I know that sounds scary, it sounds harsh, but it's true. I mean, we're seeing it now where kind of web traffic is dropping because again, people are getting their answers through AI. They're searching a question, they're reading their answer, they're not clicking through to the website as much. So more than likely, if you just keep doing what you're doing, if you're not, adapting to the change of AI, that brand visibility is going to decline. So again, if your content strategy isn't updated for AI platforms, your brand won't appear in those AI search platforms. And I mean ChatGPT, Gemini, but I think everybody probably on this call in the last year or so, if you search for anything in Google, you get that AI snippet up at the top. So again, if your strategy, you got to be thinking in terms of like, okay, assuming that these people are going to be using AI. And again, this doesn't necessarily mean AI for content production. We're talking strictly about how our audience is absorbing the content. So if you ignore it, you're not going to be showing up in those snippets and those AI search results. So that loss of visibility, those are lost trust opportunities. You're not showing up. People are searching for challenges, they're searching for problems, they're searching for information, and you're not in the party. So if you're missing those trust opportunities, who's winning them? Like more than likely, your competitors are going to be in that AI search and they're dominating the awareness stage. So it's actually your competitors that are winning that trust with their 90%. So if your competitors are dominating that 90%, they're winning the trust, more than likely you're going to get fewer qualified leads and lower ROI on marketing. Again, it sounds scary. And this transition slide is kind of a representation of the brand visibility going away. Like, no. But good news. Let's talk good news. Let's say we do take an AI-centric, always-on approach. What does that mean? What are the results? So trust signals. This is kind of a gross oversimplification, but if you are creating valuable thought leadership around these core topics relevant to your audience, the way AI works is it's scanning and it sees this valuable content and rewards it and thinks, okay, these guys are the authority on this topic. So when people are searching for this topic, I'm going to pull from here. So why does that matter? So if they're pulling from your information, your audience, that 90%, they're getting smarter based off the content that you're creating. Again, we want smarter audiences. Why? Because if they're getting smarter and they're absorbing your content, when the time comes that they do engage with your brand, whether that's clicking through the source on AI, whether it's, they saw an email or lead gen, or they see you on social media, they're going to interact with your brand with a clear purpose. They know, oh, these guys know what they're talking about. They provide me value. So why does that matter? If people are approaching your brand as, hey, I can trust them, they are the experts. Anytime they kind of come to your site or they engage with your brand, there's greater conversion potential and therefore a stronger ROI. Again, because it's a very cyclical nature. You're building the content that gets read by AI. Your audience, that 90%, is getting smarter because you're creating actual valuable content, educational content. So if they're smarter, they're going to trust your brand. And if they trust your brand, when the time comes, they're going to have a stronger ROI potential. So I have 3 very simple but important takeaways about content in the AI age. 1, find what your audience is asking, answer what your audience is asking. That's very important. I'm going to say it again. Find what your audience is asking, answer what your audience is asking. Second truth. So you have to appease the robots, but you have to convert the humans. And what I mean by this is I think historically where I've seen some brands fall short is they think all you need to do is just use the right keyword. All you got to do is just appease the robots. Just showing up is winning. And that's a little foolhardy because what happens is that, they just focus all the time and energy less about creating something valuable for their audience. It's just, let's use the right keyword and then we'll show up. What happens there is when the human does see it, there doesn't provide any value. So they quickly kind of abandon it. So then it's like, what was the value there? the analogy I use there is like you put on you spread the word you're throwing the biggest block party the neighborhood has ever seen, and you got a lot of people coming to the party, and then after a minute they leave. Okay, that's not success. And alternatively, like the other flip of the coin is we see people put a lot of time and effort to create something really valuable, and it is great content, but because it's not promoted or because it's not structured properly, it never ends up actually on the radar. So that'd be the equivalent of the block party. You have everything you need to put on the best party the neighborhood's ever seen, but you didn't spread the word. Nobody knows about the party, so nobody shows up. Is that success? And one thing that is a benefit of AI is historically it was just, yeah, just use the right keyword and that's going to boost your chances. AI is getting a lot more discerning at understanding what's valuable content, which it would be the kind of content that converts the humans. So again, putting the time and effort to create something, I can't reiterate this enough, like it has to be valuable and good. And then the AI will reward it, and it's more likely the human will kind of find value in it and then take the next step in the buyer's journey. So the third key truth, I kind of see these as the three legs of the stool of a good content strategy. A, you have to address what your audience wants. If you just try to think, okay, we want to do our talking points, and it's not something the audience cares about, they're not going to engage. And it's kind of a waste of time. You have to address what does the audience want? What is their challenge? What are they looking for? But also you have to fit your overall business objectives. It can't just be, hey, what seems like a good topic? Oh, I don't know. What about this? Like if you know your high level corporate business objective is ABC, you can't have content that just focuses on XYZ. So just making sure again you're seeing the bigger picture and you're aligned with the larger business objectives. And then efficient production. You can address what the audience wants. It can fit perfectly what you're trying to do from a business perspective. But if it takes 3 months and $5,000 to write a blog, like it's just not scalable. So how can you produce as much good content as efficiently as possible? So I'll kind of stop here. If there's any questions, drop them in the chat or the Q&A. I'd be happy to answer. But as we kind of move along. So the what? So we know the why. Like most people, and JC, stop me if somebody's asking anything. So most people are not looking to buy your product. That's the why. And AI is kind of changing how stuff is done. So we know like, okay, I got it, Jesse. We need like valuable content. What does that actually look like? So we call these like cornerstone content pieces or crown jewel pieces or whatever they are, but they're kind of larger scale. They're trends reports or educational guides. They're again positioning your brand as the authority on this topic. As this example, it's about sustainability and paper trays, and like there's a lot of subtopics within that. There's evolving shopper habits. There's all these subcategories. So creating a larger kind of crown jewel piece that's it's not just a wall of words. You can kind of see here and here. Like it looks good, it's digestible, but it's also answering our audience's questions. And with these kind of larger pieces, these are the things that you can kind of turn into smaller question and answer driven articles to kind of fit AEO and AI's how AI likes to function. But so kind of again, these kind of cornerstone pieces. Again, educational hub pages. I know there's a lot of people have like landing pages or their kind of company page, but kind of building out, we want to own this subtopic and where all the videos, the articles, everything that you're creating lives on one spot. And JC, I know this is one of your clients. I don't know if you want to kind of speak to what we were trying to accomplish here.
Yeah, I think with this like educational hub and these articles that we've been doing with NSL, it really shows like the depth and breadth of their business and how much they know so that they're coming across as these like thought leaders and setting them up in a way where we're hitting not only SEO but AEO as well. So when somebody is in ChatGPT and they're looking for material testing services, or have a specific question, NSL becomes like that source of truth in a way. And it really instills that kind of trust from the user to NSL or whatever your brand is. So it's been really, I don't know, beneficial for them because it also then gives them something to post on social about. And you kind of get to pull out tidbits from these articles to have on your socials. So it's a really great opportunity, I think, for businesses and brands.
Exactly. So beyond hub pages, newsletters. I know there's quite a few newsletters out there, and some might be thinking like, oh God, another newsletter. In our experience, like if you make a newsletter that is good and valuable, people will open. Like the people want information. What they don't want is like, oh, it's a newsletter about a company telling me how great they are. Like, okay, yeah, those are gonna get bounced. They're not gonna get open. But this is a good example of like kind of the fuel management world, kind of having a keystone article every time. I think we send this out maybe 6 times a year or so. But again, we've seen steady growth from the audience because again, word spreads, people share, hey, this is a pretty good newsletter. You should check this out. Again, if you provide value, people will open it. And I know it sounds like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. But if you provide value, people will open it. So non-product advertising. I think, most people associate advertising with, yeah, we want to promote this product or service. We want to promote us. Where we've seen really, really good results is these cornerstone pieces, actually spending ad dollars on those and just promoting those as a way to kind of gather leads. Because again, if you think about it, let's say, again, 95% of your audience isn't looking to buy right now. So if you're spending all your energy for advertising on just product promotion, that's a vast majority of your audience that you're ignoring. Whereas having a dual approach of just having product advertising, but also, hey, we created this really interesting cornerstone piece. Our audience, more of your audience is going to find value in that and engage in that. And then also SME generated content. Again, this depends on the company, but if you're cool with it, like incorporating, it's not just faceless company are the experts, but actually getting some of your SMEs in front of the camera, having them quoted in articles, making them the experts. So again, it's not just, company X knows what they're talking about, but it's, Jem, Jenny, all these different people at company X know what they're talking about. And why that's important is people want to talk to other people. If I have a need, I'd rather talk to Jim than reach out and talk to company X. So the how. So we know the why. Most people are not looking to buy. AI is changing how things are done. We know the what, these educational pieces, landing hub pages, newsletters. Like, how do we do this? So again, we've talked about kind of address what your audience wants, find what they're asking, answer what they're asking. So what about these two legs of the stool? Like, how do we make sure it's fitting overall business objectives, and how do we make sure it's produced efficiently? So we use content calendars, and these are really great at are being able to kind of see the bigger picture, kind of seeing up at the top right. Let's see if I can annotate. I'm going to go John Madden on you real quick. So like up here, those are kind of like the campaign KPIs. We can kind of fill in like what are the corporate objectives, but also you just kind of see the bigger picture. You see, hey, what trade shows are we going to be at? Where, when is this product campaign launching? So by doing this, you kind of stay focused, organized, and most importantly, efficient. And I think we actually have a version of this, a template. If you're interested, you can kind of reach out. We have
I
it
just
in.
dropped it in the chat,
Oh,
Jesse,
perfect.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
And then if I know some places, so some companies aren't Google friendly, reach out. We can give you an Excel form of it as well. So, okay, we know the chessboard. You can kind of have a proactive plan from the start of the year. That's when you can really start to compound content. So I'm going to stay on this slide for a little bit. The beauty of the content calendar is you can understand how all the kind of the pieces work together. We know we're going to create this cornerstone piece of content. And we know we're going to cover, let's say topic A, B, C, and D, however those fit into the larger piece. When you have a plan up front, hey, from the section of the cornerstone piece that covers topic A, we could turn that into 2 infographics, into 3 blogs, into a lot of social media posts. Again, having the plan from the start of how you're going to slice and dice this is going to get more for your marketing dollars. Because I know coming into this conversation, I could understand where it's like, boy, this seems like a real big investment. I don't know, like, how much are we going to, it seems a little daunting. But if you kind of have a plan, that's how you can kind of execute at scale and get more for your money. And I know, JC, we're doing this for one client. Do you want to kind of share a little bit of how that's going?
Yeah, I will say just from like a planning perspective, because that's where a lot of my job is planning and kind of helping the team get things going. And I think doing something like this, it takes that guesswork out of, what are we writing about for the blog this week? We don't have any topics. You kind of have like a bunch of content that you can pull from in your arsenal, and then you can just shoot it out. It's been really helpful as well, like budget wise, because you're really investing in that cornerstone piece. And then the infographics and blogs and socials or emails, those all kind of fall afterwards. So you're not investing as much in developing the content for those specifically. You might have like some design or some pieces here and there, but it's not as much of an investment. So you're really seeing like the ROI kind of through itself, I guess. So it's been really helpful, and it's a really nice approach for clients who aren't sure really where to start when it comes to like doing thought leadership. I think this is like a really easy and thoughtful approach. We do have a question though.
Yeah.
With a limited marketing budget, do you recommend content generation investment versus SEO or pay per click?
Yeah, and that's where it kind of becomes it's to me, it's not a this or that. It's kind of finding a way to kind of do both. And again, it's hard to tell just because each situation is so different. Understanding kind of the specific situation. I think a lot of times, yeah, with PPC, again, there is value in that. But with always on, again, it's you can also frame it as kind of SEO, where like SEO and AEO, like they're more like structures. Like SEO is sort of just like, using the right keywords. AEO is structuring it differently. So you can have an approach that kind of covers AEO and SEO with content. So again, that especially when I would say, especially when budgets are slim. And again, that's a harsh reality. It's something that like we're very aware of. That's where kind of this planning makes it even more important because your margin of error is slimmer. So again, finding a way to kind of have a good plan, and whatever that budget is for always on content or content development, making sure like, okay, how can we get the absolute most out of that? And one thing, especially on this, that is helpful is, especially because you have the plan and this cornerstone piece is going to cover A, B, C, D, and we're going to reskin it in a bunch of different ways. You can actually build the thing in a way like with the design. Okay, build it with knowing, okay, we could use this as an infographic, this as an infographic, and incorporating, if there's talking points or information that like, boy, this cornerstone piece is getting a little bit too long, knowing like, oh, hey, we could probably cut it from the cornerstone piece, but let's make sure we save that nugget, we save that story, we save that anecdote for the blogs or the social media posts or the infographics. And also with the rise of AI, you also see where this kind of becomes a lot more efficient. Again, I know the reality, not every company is allowed to use AI. So for the companies that do have AI, understanding, being able to build outlines, or here's the cornerstone content piece, make a recommendation of some potential blog topics. That's where you can really start to use AI as kind of to throw gasoline on the fire to produce as much as possible. So find what your audience is asking. We kind of talked about how important that is. What does that actually look like? So there is actual traditional search data you can find, SEO audits, site searches, form submissions, just kind of search in the internet. Okay, what are people searching for? There's also user provided data. I think social media, Reddit, some of those things are an underutilized source of like, hey, what is within our world? What are kind of people talking about? What are they asking about? Reviews, forums. If there's voice of the customer, voice of the industry studies, those are great resources. Also, like just check with the sales and the customer service folks. Like have regular discussions. It shouldn't be sales is over here, marketing's over here. Talk with sales. Hey, what are people asking you? What are they wondering? What are their challenges? What are their fears? Kind of, check out CRM data, service tickets, kind of just basically the people that our audience, like, what are they talking about? What are they asking about? So, the superpowers of everybody. So this lovely AI image, and what are the odds that everybody is attractive? But so you kind of have this team of that each kind of have their own superpowers. There's, on the one side is kind of the knowledge base, the product managers, sales managers, SMEs, the intern, got to include them, but also kind of the production specialists, the designers, writers, web developers, social experts. Like we have all these people that have these individual skills, and we from the content calendar, we know our approach, we know what we're going to focus on this year. We know, okay, we're going to take this cornerstone content piece, slice it into a million things. So we have the plan and we have the people. That's when you can start to plan a lightning strike. So what is a lightning strike? To me, it's a content summit, it's a trade show, sales kickoff. Basically, it's where are all these people under one roof so we can gather as much information from the knowledge section to feed the content. And you'd be surprised how much information you can get from a trade show. You could get all the information you need for a whole year if you're focused and you have a plan coming in. So again, going back to that efficient production, it's not, hey, we have a blog, okay, let's reach back out to sales for this one blog. No, like we have the plan, we have all the information. That way you can really start to slice and dice and really create at scale. So we talked about kind of, find what your audience is asking. Now, what about answer what your audience is asking? And similar kind of slide here of a similar approach of just slicing and dicing. You're taking something larger and breaking it down into something smaller. Let's say, your SME is putting on a webinar or and just you want to interview them, a podcast or whatever, something large scale that you can then turn into searchable content. So you have the 30, 40-minute video, then you can kind of take the transcript, you slice and dice, take that information, turn it into those cornerstone content pieces, turn it into testimonials, articles, FAQs. From that, you can turn them into social media attention grabbers, the did you knows, the stats, those kind of appetizers where you're kind of taking one piece of content, that 30-minute webinar, and now you're turning it into a lot of different stuff that, again, is answering what your audience is asking. So I got this analogy, and it's a great analogy from our social media manager and strategist, Pat Turner. So if you think about Thanksgiving dinner, it's this big feast and everything is great. Now picture at the end, somebody takes all the leftovers and throws them in the garbage. You'd be like, what are you doing? So that's kind of how we see with content. Sometimes people make this big piece, this grand piece, or they put on this 30-minute webinar, and that's it. Again, there's so much value, and we call it the leftovers. Every Thanksgiving, everybody says, the leftovers are the best part. So again, don't throw away the leftovers. Take the big thing, slice and dice it, take the ingredients, mix and mash them, and then you've got meals for weeks. So let's talk distribution. We've talked a lot about the actual creation of it. From a distribution perspective, we kind of see two approaches. There's kind of the digital side, again, organic social, having employees kind of share on their social media. Because again, really good thought leadership is going to get internal people excited and want to share. But also kind of, again, that paid social, not just spending ad dollars on product promotion, but hey, here's a definitive guide on this core topic. Let's throw some ad dollars and get on LinkedIn and making sure we're showing up. An email that can be, a newsletter. It can be the sales guys saying, hey, saw this, thought of you. I know, you've been having a real challenge with downtime. We actually created this interesting piece that's all about kind of minimizing downtime. Again, it's a sales opener, but again, it just kind of email is another channel. Paid and organic and AI search. Now we have to add, again, adding those PPC dollars, like we talked about the question earlier. Sometimes content can be part of a PPC approach. Editorials and trade pubs. You're actively creating these articles. I can't stress this enough. Trade pubs are huge because AI sees them as a neutral source. So getting those articles and pitching them to these various trade pubs is a great way to kind of put your thumb on the scale to, again, get that visibility, because AI will likely be pulling from trade pubs. And if you actually have an article in hand that is valuable, it's more likely that trade pubs that cover your industry are more likely to want to run it. And then if you have kind of end users or channel newsletters, whether it's distributors or whatever, again, kind of working that network and getting a piece that can be shared across your entire environment, not just your own little slice of the world. So that's kind of some of the digital side. The in real life side, I know a lot of people are thinking, like, how can we just make something different at our trade shows? Because a lot of times you go to a trade show and a lot of the booths, it's just all the same and it's product promotion. But, picture you create this cornerstone piece, or you have a landing page hub that covers thought leadership, and you're talking with somebody, at a trade show. Oh my gosh, you're experiencing downtime. Actually, you should scan this QR code. We have this really interesting article. Again, it's engaging them. It gets them in the tent. And I kind of mentioned the sales door openers to re-engage. Again, that, hey, saw this, thought of you. Hey, it's been a while, or whatever the case may be. But hey, we created this really interesting piece. Thought you might enjoy it. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, let me know. And then 4 worlds that kind of have influencer partnerships. Again, whether that's partnerships with that educational hub page or kind of working with influencers to actually create the cornerstone piece. That's a great way to kind of network and solidify yourself as like a neutral authority on the subject. And kind of going back to, it's Bill from company X, not just company X. Like if we're positioning, we're getting bylines, we're getting interviews, potentially getting actual, speaking engagements, trade publication interviews with our people out in the real world. So there's a lot you can do with distribution. And to be honest, distribution is where I kind of see content programs stumble the most. Is they create this piece, they have one social media post about it, and then it's like, all right, well, we promoted it. No, you got to get it out in the world, and there's a lot of different ways to get it out in the world. So this is kind of how you hit this middle section. And I'm embarrassed on how long it took me to make this stupid graphic. But you're addressing what the audience wants, right? You find what they're asking, you answer what they're asking with valuable content. You're fitting the overall business objectives. Again, you have the content calendar. You're talking with other people within your company. You know the big vision of the company. How can content help the big vision? And because we have the content calendar, we know how to slice and dice. We're getting all the information from the knowledge base at one time to make it as much as possible. That's how you can produce efficiently. How do you know it's working? So there's going to be leading indicators. So there's no bones about it. Like this is a kind of a longer term play. Like this is for long-term growth. You're going to see an increase of branded search traffic. Some of you might be like, huh, branded search? Why is that? So if you think about how AI is working now, they call it zero-click search. So what that means is somebody searches, what's the best ANSI pump for this application? They get an answer spit out. They're not clicking anywhere. They're just kind of reading the answers. Or they're kind of, at a later, they're kind of not engaging as much with your website. But when they are, they know, oh, okay, these guys know what they're talking about. So they're building trust. Practically speaking, what's going to happen is if they're want to search you out, they'll just Google your name. It's just the way people are, if they're like, especially, they're not going to know your URL by heart. So more than likely, they're just going to search company X pumps, Google search, go to your website. So that's where you're going to see that Brandon search is because you're building the trust and they have name recognition of like, oh, in the world of pumps, like these are the guys, they're going to be more likely to search your name in the Google search. So AEO visibility, again, that's just talking about like answer and AI search visibility. There are tools that exist, like this is a thing that exists with SEMrush. So you have a score of like how much you're showing up in AI search results. So again, keeping an eye on that. Hopefully that's going up. But also like just general engagement, social media engagement. People are liking and sharing, and not just people that have your logo on their shirt. Like you're getting to your greater audience because you're actually creating valuable content that they find interesting, not just, hey, here's another post about how great we are. And as you kind of start to build a following, especially for a newsletter, those open and click rates will increase, and the subscribers, as we kind of talk about trailing indicators. So leading indicators, these are going to be the kind of the first things you kind of see, like, okay, yeah, this is paying off. We're seeing, because the leading indicators are all kind of trust related. So the trailing indicators, word's going to get around about your newsletter, that you're going to get more subscribers as people are engaging. Again, for form fills, they're getting smarter. If you remember that spin wheel graph, they're getting smarter. So when they engage with your brand, they're more trustworthy, and there's more likely for a stronger ROI conversion and RFQs. So at the end of the day, though, it's all about show me the money, right? Like what's the ROI? How is this going to kind of actually move the needle from a business perspective? So content marketing and ROI, it's always kind of been a white whale. We're starting to kind of see a better line towards ROI because again, this is a long-term strategy. Eventually, you're going to get a more consistent flow of sales qualified leads because again, these people are getting smarter. They're more educated on your topic. So when the time comes that they need something, they're smarter and they know better what they want, and they're going to trust you enough to fill out a form and request a quote and higher close rates. Because again, trust is so monumentally important within this industry that as you've kind of been building trust, that's going to lead to higher close rates because again, you have a good product and they trust you. And because you've kept the lead warm from the very start, like before they even need anything, you didn't wait until like, oh shoot, I need something, I better dive into the pit of research, because that's a chance for the competitors to grab them. So if you keep them warm in that not looking to buy section, there's going to be that trust bridge, higher close rates. So always on content and lead generation, or just kind of think lead gen or like sales centric marketing. I don't see it as there's always on over here and lead gen over here. They're related. Always on content, that thought leadership builds the trust with that 90%. So when the time comes, they're in that 10%. That lead gen messaging is a lot more impactful. And that's what leads to the higher close rates and more sales qualified leads. So again, it's not, should we do always on or should we do lead gen? The most effective marketing strategy would be both. So the big takeaways as we kind of wrap up here. Remember, most of your audience isn't looking to buy. 90%, 95% isn't looking to buy. Thought leadership, educational thought leadership, valuable thought leadership is the best way to win that attention of that 90%. AI has changed how people get information. 90% of people, B2B buyers, use it in the research process. And again, AI rewards thoughtful content around specific topics. Again, you want to be associated as you are the authority, not just for the humans, but for the AI robots. Having a plan helps you compound content. Again, budgets are limited. It's a harsh reality. But if you have a plan, you can build it around a proactive approach and slice and dice and get as much possible content. We see this all the time of just like, let's say you have a case study. Well, that case study, you could turn it into an infographic. You could turn it into an article. You could turn it into a trade publication editorial. Just how do you kind of turn this thing into 2 or 3 things, and how you turn those things into 2 or 3 things. That's how you get more for your marketing dollars. And always on content makes lead gen more impactful. It's not this or that. You need to warm the leads of the 90%. You need to win the trust. That's when you win the trust. So when the time comes, the lead gen and the sales centric message is much more impactful and likely to land and increase your close rates. Questions? I'll open it up. And as I open it up, if anybody has any questions, drop them in the chat or the Q&A. If you'd like to talk more, if this is really interesting to you and you want a more detailed approach or one-on-one, or you just want to learn more, if you're a DeanHouston client, reach out to the account manager. If you're account manager, you can reach out to me as well. Anybody else, you have my email. I don't know, JC, if you dropped in the chat. You can find me on LinkedIn. This is my actual grown-up photo. But I'd love to talk to you. I'm kind of the geeky guy that reads books on writing, so I'm passionate about this stuff. So I'd love to kind of help you out or answer any questions.
Jesse, just while we're waiting for questions to come in,
Yeah.
something that I've been wondering, and I know other clients and people in marketing probably feel the same way or may be thinking about this, but how would someone get buy-in from leadership when it comes to always on content? Because I know that can be kind of a struggle. We talked about limited budgets, but how would you like position this?
Yeah, it kind of comes down to just like this world, like trust is so monumentally important. And again, kind of, being able to tell the story of winning the trust of the 90% while they're still in the 90%. So when the time comes, if we want to increase our close rates, we want to increase our sales qualified leads, aka increase revenue. Having a long-term approach that looks at kind of the entire lifetime value of the audience, like before they even need anything. Again, it's setting yourself up for success and not just thinking only lead gen and only looking at what's in front of you, being able to look at what's in front of you from a lead gen perspective, but also kind of seeing a bigger picture. And again, starting to kind of see the ROI of kind of seeing the numbers climb up. And again, seeing the sales qualified leads and just kind of general awareness of your brands.
So kind of like fueling the organic machine
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. Yep. And again, the idea of having a plan and being able to scale it, again, it's a lot of work, but it's a way to get a lot, and it's able to kind of scale production. So you're getting more for your marketing dollars. Questions?
Oh, we just got a question.
Yeah.
So with so much um, educational content available online, how do we stand out?
Yeah, it's a good question. Because especially with the rise of AI, like there's going to be an influx of content. So it's sort of like, how do you kind of stand out? AI is really good at making mediocre, like it's not great, it's not horrible, it's like it's fine. So it kind of, again, using AI, but having kind of a very specific, a point of view, kind of leaning on the thought leaders and being more specific. Like that's how you end up being kind of the tallest tree in the forest, is if you're actually speaking to a very need of the audience and doing it in a way that is insightful and approachable. That's when people are going to start to engage, because if they read one of your things and it's really good and really interesting, they're more likely to read the second and then the third and then the fourth, and then that's how you kind of get a following.
Any other questions? Oh, the Q&A. Um, all right. In B2B, what would you say are the best distribution formats? Email, social, etc.
Yeah, I mean, if you have to choose one, we find real good performance with email. What I like about email is that you get a lot of information of like who's clicking, who like under the hood information. Email is also can be, you can overdo it and people are just like, oh man, another email. Um, the shorter answer is like you want multiple. You don't want to just put all your eggs in like the email basket. But again, that's being able to scale to different types of distribution. Because again, with social media, if you're creating something that's really insightful and it's getting shared from your internal team, that's when you have a lot. Social is great at having like a network effect where one person shares it to their network who don't follow you, and then they share it, and then they share it. So yeah, I mean, both social and email are great channels, and just general, formatting on the website to make sure you're showing up in AI overviews would also be important.
And then we kind of answered this a little bit earlier, but with AI becoming better and better these days, do you recommend using AI to create content?
Um, it's an interesting question. Especially within our world, there's not a lot of out there because it's pulling it from information. Um, I don't recommend using it and just like you create the thing, have it just write the blog for you and then post it. Usually it's really good at like, hey, come up with a couple of different approaches, outlines or different ideas, or kind of as like a helper. At the end of the day, you still need like at least again, from take it with a grain of salt. I'm self-aware to know like this is a writer talking about this. But we really, like I said, to be the tallest tree in the forest, you kind of need that human. And again, leaning on the insights from the knowledge base within your organization, that's where you can kind of, I think AI caps how far you can get from a quality perspective. It can probably get you, a C plus. But if you want kind of to be in that B plus A range, that's where you need kind of the human and AI to kind of work together to create something really good.
Any other questions? I know we have about 5 minutes left. Oh, here we go. Since there is so much pressure to produce content quickly, how do you ensure that content remains authentic, high quality, and genuinely trustworthy, especially when AI is involved?
Yeah, again, going back to the AI, like never just like copy and pasting and like, oh, that works for me. Like being discerning, especially like with statistics or any sort of thing that, just making sure you verify is monumentally important if you do use AI, because that's how you end up with egg on your face of just like, did you know that 85% blah 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 blah, when it's like, well, actually that was a made up statistic, that was a hallucination. So again, always just kind of verifying. But again, just being aligned, I can't emphasize this enough. If marketing, sales, and everybody, all those superheroes are aligned, that's where you can get a lot more streamlined and focused. Because again, it doesn't necessarily need to be long. It can be kind of short snippets or whatever, but just making sure more people kind of, you're leaning on the insights of the knowledge base to create something great. Because if you just remove the knowledge base out of it, that's when you get kind of vague AI content that is kind of that C plus content.
All right, I think there's one more question. We'll maybe end on this one. Um, as always, you can email Jesse. bug him on LinkedIn
Please
if
do.
you do have any additional questions. But how can my content team future-proof their content strategies to stay relevant over time?
It's just kind of part of that's just being aware, just kind of making sure you kind of have your finger on the pulse of what's new, what's out there. Because again, like historically, B2B marketing is years behind the curve. So kind of understanding and just a big part of what we do is just seeing cool stuff that's out there that, hey, we could use that for this. So yeah, again, it's kind of a vague answer, I know, but really just being aware and on top of stuff and just kind of wherever you go, just never turn off that side of your brain. Always kind of be looking for, hey, that's interesting, or oh, this is an interesting tool. So again, the more aware you make yourself, the more again ahead of the curve you're going to stay. If we're going to talk about kind of future proofing, but I really think like valuable, insightful content is never going to go out of style. Like that's something that education is something that is always going to be needed and a thing. Now, whatever form that takes may change, but the core concept of, educating people on topics is never going to go away.
Alrighty. Well, I think that leaves us with a minute left, so I don't want us to get too far down a rabbit hole. But thank you all so much for joining us. Um, like we mentioned, you all will receive an email with some of the topics that we talked about today or some of the items that we threw in the chat. As always, you can reach out to Jesse for any of your content related questions. But you can also reach out to your account managers or client success managers like myself if you want to talk more about how we can implement stuff like this into your marketing plans, especially as we look towards 2026 and beyond. Jesse, anything else that I missed?
No, just, I mean, generally, thank you guys. I know there's a lot of different things out there. There's a lot of ways to spend your time. So I'm generally appreciative that you kind of spent the hour with us.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your day and a great weekend.